and welcome, welcome, welcome. I get to reintroduce you. This is part two to the beautiful and talented Amy Hicks. And we're just going to have a casual conversation and discuss and be in the energy of the fact that Rooted to Rise is out. It's in people's hands. We're already getting amazing feedback. We just received another one this morning that was just mind-blowing how a chapter helps support another person who just got some hard news. And that's what it's all about. It's about getting it in people's hands and letting them know that they're not alone, that there are tools, and that we're just all here to love and support each other through the plant. So welcome, Amy. How are you today?
Great. I'm doing so well. I'm excited to talk about this. I keep looking on Amazon because our book has almost officially been out for a full month, and we are still in top 100 for new releases in women's biographies and memoirs, which just blows my mind. And that says, I'm getting chills right now. It says a lot about the seven of us women coming together and just the message that we have to share. And so I'm excited to keep talking about it.
I can't believe, I think we have such a special story just between the two of us. So I would love for you to tell people how it started, but then just like 2 months later, you invited me to be a part of it. And you're actually the friend in my chapter that I talk about. So I feel like you and I have just been on this journey for over 8 years together. And we have so many sub stories to go with that. But let us know, how did it all begin with you?
Wow, that was a while ago, but it's such a huge part of the journey. In my chapter, I talk about how the plant really comes into so many different chapters of my life. You know, that was there in my younger days, and then it reemerged right before I, had kids, and then when I did have kids. And so you and I were instantly drawn to each other in a mom's group, and you were so supportive. And over that time, I had some transitions. I had lost my career. I was trying to get another side business going, and everything just seemed to be like falling out from under me. I'm sure as a lot of people could relate, with the pandemic and the world and all of that. And I was like, what's next? I really had no clue. And that was when the plant came back into my life. And it was CBD. It was such a different part that I was not really aware of. I didn't even know at first what those three little letters were. But the more I started to learn, the more I knew all the people that could benefit. And I knew that this was going to be much more well received because what was getting the stigma was the THC and people getting high and all of these. We don't even need to go there. But what really started to resonate, like I said, was just all the people could benefit. And when I knew that you were going through some things and busy mom, and you were on all these medications and going through your waiting for a kidney transplant, it was like, well, here's another woman that I think should try this. And you trusted me because we had that relationship. And I think that was what was so important when we started the mission and started getting this out there, informing people of what even CBD is, because this was 8 years ago. And we were some of the first to pioneer this. So it took a lot of courage to stand up and be like, no, we want to actually set the record straight and tell you that, educate you, right? It was started with education and awareness and the trust, like building those relationships. So everything just started falling into place, and more and more testimonials started rolling in. We talk about it in my chapter, and it really just started with people wanting to feel better, have options. And one little thing, these little drops under your tongue, ended up just bringing people better health and not relying on other things, and just bringing that spark back into them. And that's kind of what we started running with. It was just the testimonials and the education, and this book is just one more way for us to like amplify our voices, because there's so much more than just like social media or word of mouth, and more people deserve to know, because even 8 years later, there's still a stigma, and there's still people that don't know. And it's these stories that people relate to that said, that's me. And that's when people reached out, because it was that one little thing of that's me. So we have to be specific, I think, in the ways it's helping, because that's the only way people are going to really dive in further, if they have that one little piece of connection.
Exactly. I love that you brought up the transitioning from the THC to the CBD and everything. And I actually picked out a part of your book, of your chapter on page 48, and it says, it was obvious I was stressed. Needless to say, I was hopeful to see if CBD could calm my ass down. Mostly, I was curious to see how it would differ from the THC I was so frequently consuming. And then you go into just how blown away you were with the education aspect of it, and that you talk about different comparisons of the THC and the CBD. Would you expand on possibly like what were some of the biggest differences you noticed?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for one, I remember being offered CBD when I went into a dispensary. I had just gotten into a car accident, and I was just like, well, what are the differences? And the main thing the girl told me was, well, this one gets you high and this doesn't. And so I was like, well, isn't the whole point to like be high and like get your mind relaxed and all this stuff? So I was like, you know what I mean? I didn't really partake in wanting to find out more about that, until it kept coming back into my life. And my massage therapist used a CBD cream, and it instantly helped me. And I was like, what just happened? What is this? I need to know more. And that's when I started to learn that both THC and CBD can be beneficial, but there's different benefits. They're like, they have different components to them, different parts of the body that they're going to um, benefit. And CBD for me, it allowed me to like shut my brain off at night. So like the plant was it allowed me to just kind of like have that moment of relaxation or unwinding, but it I still had a lot going on in my mind that wasn't able to fully just relax. And so for me, it was like the very first drops of CBD helped me, my eyes get droopy and my mind stop racing. And then as I started experimenting more, I noticed that it actually had more of an anti-inflammatory effect than just the THC alone. And so I just started diving into all the books, and I'm always a proponent of both, but the CBD really is what I attribute to overall balance, like overall homeostasis. I always say it's what's going on behind closed doors that you don't realize. And there were moments where I stopped or wasn't consistent with my CBD, and I could tell my mood was up and down more than if I just were to keep incorporating the CBD, which is like a steady overall balance. So now it's like THC for me is more of that recreational, alternative to even alcohol, things like that. And then CBD is like my daily wellness.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the fact that you're using it as a tool outside of like a lot of women in particular use alcohol to just have that calming effect, a glass of wine for dinner and stuff. And it doesn't like have health benefits per se, whereas CBD does. And, breaking the stigma, I remember even up to just a year or two ago, so many people are so anti CBD, but like, hey, let's go out and have some drinks. And
Mm.
that's always like on a personal level bothered me. So I'm glad you brought that up, because it's crazy what we accept and what we don't accept, or what we normalize and what we don't normalize. And that leads me to another part, circling back to what you were talking about earlier on page 51. And you were talking about so many were just watching from the sidelines. More and
Mm.
more people started feeling compelled to link arms, 6 of whom are in this very book. And it's just that like trickle down. The second you use your voice, other people find their voice and they use their voice. And it's just this like beautiful web is what I'm thinking of, like branches of a tree. We're just like all a branch of this beautiful tree of life affirming truth, of experience of all of that. And it talks about where you say, when you have such a profound transformation from something as simple as some daily drops of CBD, you can't help but shout to the world, regardless of what anyone may think. And I feel like that truly defines why we did this book.
Yeah.
That, I mean, if there was like
And
anything to
like
pull
we're
from this whole book, um,
proud.
that because when this idea, not even an idea, when I felt convicted that we needed to step outside of the social media and all the things to write this, you were like absolutely the first one to say yes. Like
Mm.
there was no hesitation. It was almost like just waiting for the invitation. Can you expand on that a little bit of like what that felt like as soon as I brought this up?
Um, I've, I've always felt so compelled to talk about this plant because it's like, I even quote it in the front. It's like the real crime is knowing that it helps, but not saying anything. And
Right.
so many people let fear hold them back. And we stay safe and we do what we're told and we listen to all this past conditioning. And we were told that this is the devil's lettuce. And why? Well, because it actually is helping. It is getting to the root. Ah, there you go. Rooted tries. It's getting to the root of the issue instead of just masking it or putting a band-aid over it or saying, okay, you have to take all of these synthetics and now you got to take this one to combat that. And you got this cocktail of chemicals in your body. And I think that, you know, I know for so many of us, I've seen that when you start to heal holistically, like with something like the plant, it really opens up so many other areas of your life that start to change as well. You don't know what you don't know. And so I've seen so many people change their habits just because of this one plant. They start feeling better and they want to get out more and exercise. They start looking into other things that they could make safe swaps on, like their skincare, their cleaning supplies, because most of us are that are women are mothers and we care so much about our kids, and that's a big stigma too, is people are afraid to even, like, how could you give this to your children? And it's like, how could you not? So long as you are educated and you know what you're choosing, and CBD is not going to affect anything of the brain. And in fact, it's going to be neuroprotective. And I'm like, your breast milk has cannabinoids. So like that just goes down a whole nother path. But what I'm getting at is that there's so much we don't know. And it at least empowers people to do their own research. I'm never going to say, you do this or this is what you should do. Here's what I did. And here's where I found that information. And here's this resource I can be for you. But I want to empower you. And I think that's what these stories do. They empower people because, like I said in the beginning, if there's something they relate to, well, then they're going to want to know more and they're going to want to look into that. Or that's the reason that this book got put in their hands. And that's the reason why we cross people's path. Not everyone's going to hear your message or relate, but those that do, they want more. And so there were people on the sidelines that were just watching, they were waiting, they were reading the testimonials, but it didn't stop us from like putting it out there. And I feel like that's why this book was such a success, because the 7 of us were like pioneering this, we're paving the way. And I envision it, like you said, like the trickle or the ripple effect. It's like we're all this intertangled roots and we're just branching out and impacting so many other people.
It's so life affirming to share with others, like something that's so positive and so needed in this world. And I love that you brought up the fact, about it being safe for kids and all the things. It's funny how Facebook memories reminds you of your kids getting all these germs. And then, like, for the last 8 years, kids not getting, like, I can't even remember the last time my kids were sick. Like it's so weird. And so
It's very quickly that they're better.
and they'll notice like, something as simple as like growing pains. They'll say, "Oh, can I have the cream?"
Yep.
Or whatever. And so now like my kids, I've equipped, they have their own jars of topical and their own bottles of, the drops because now they have those habits. And
Mm-hmm.
how important it is like, our kids are going to have this and that their moms pioneered and said it was okay. and they have their own testimonies, right?
Mhm.
We could write a whole
Mhm.
book on kid testimonies. There we go. We have another book, but I want to dive into the fact that not only are you an author of this amazing book, but you are also the designer of this book. And I really want to showcase this. You know, you came up with the Rooted to Rise title. We all worked together with like all of the subtitles and everything, but the art itself, yeah, even within like all these pages, we have, you know, the
Highlighting others was really huge part of this, I think, because it is an anthology and you want to be able to own that and stand out. And like in book signings, I mean, how exciting was it the other day, Rachelle, when people were just like, they wanted us to sign their books. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so it is just, and then being able to bring like knowing the women in this book, I think helped a little bit, because I'm able to capture that essence of like, wow, there's our dog. He takes CBD too, by the way.
yep.
um but I was able to really bring that vision to life.
Mhm.
um and I knew that like I wanted it to be a representation of the seven of us, but ambiguously, so that anyone reading this book can like insert themselves into our tribe. Like envision your hand being the eighth one, right? Or envision you being one of these women. And so that's kind of the concept behind it. And then of course, just having that real subtle hint of the plant. Because one of my big things when I came up with my brand, One Plant, One Love, is, and I write about it in here, is that I really didn't see any tasteful cannabis apparel. It was like all screaming like stoner, and people get this like bad connotation. And so it's like, how can we draw people in with this subtle essence so that your first takeaway isn't just, oh, I'm not going to read that because it's all about marijuana or whatever, right? And it's no, it's cannabis, it's the plant, and there's so many facets to it, just like there's so many facets to the seven of us women.
Yeah, I want to normalize the word cannabis. I know I
No,
went on my own journey with that while we were coming up with the title.
yeah.
You know, even being an educator and a supporter and a user and all the things, even the word cannabis still
Mm-hmm.
feel uncomfortable. And I had to walk through my own journey of, you know, the true message behind doing these books. And with that, we're so excited. We're actually just in a couple of days meeting with a group of other people for book two. You know, my vision was a trilogy, but I don't want to limit it to three books. We don't know because people are coming out of the woodworks saying,
Yeah.
I want to share my story, I want to share my story, I want to share my story. And the fact that you said something just a couple of days ago that from here on out, it's all going to be an extension from our stories. And that has just like hit my
Yeah.
heart in such a beautiful way because it's what you were talking about, holding hands. It's about, you know, letting everyone know that their story matters because they matter. And so this is just a beautiful beginning.
And I think when you have a group of people behind, like that you are doing this together with, it 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 translates that like bravery and that courage, because you're not doing it alone. And from the beginning, we were that tribe of people. We did link arms. It's a mission. We've always said this is a mission, and we're on this mission together. So we weren't alone in it. And when you share your story, you're not going to be alone in it. When we were celebrating becoming bestseller, we weren't alone, we were celebrating together. And that's what's cool about an anthology, is that you really get that collective energy. And I know that that is what helped us to reach bestseller too, because we all were out there, you know, pioneering for this, and we all have these different networks. And so with each book, we're going to reach that many more people, because people want to read from who they know, but then they're also in turn going to hear these other stories, and then they might pick up another book, and then it's just this beautiful way of owning it and letting more people be aware. And man, I'm telling you, if you have a story, you've got to get a publisher, because for me, that took so much pressure off and allowed me to just bask in like telling the story from my point of view and not having to worry about all the other stuff. I got to focus on just being my voice, marketing it. And I knew that you guys were taking care of all the details. So I think that is something to be said too, for when you're ready to tell your story, have someone, a professional to help you along the way.
I love that because I didn't even know the process until I became the process. And it really does allow authors, just people, let's just say people,
Yep.
because they turn into authors, but people to step into their authenticity and really show up exactly how they need to show up without all the stress.
Mm-hmm.
It's not stressful for us because we know the process and we know like all the ins and outs, but I will say that the fact that we hit number one in less than 12 hours in personal transformation and stayed there for 3 days, we didn't even adjust the price. And the fact that we stayed in the top 10 for a week, we stayed in the top 25 for 2 weeks, and now we're like in the top 100 still, that really shows that like the world was ready to receive this. And it's just going to, we're sitting next to memoirs of people who are famous or, people who are multiple best-selling authors. And so I feel like,
Nobel Peace Prize winners.
yeah. Oh, yeah. That was fun. And we were number two in other categories, and
Yeah.
stayed there for a while. And the life is not a competition. It just really shows you what the world is wanting, needing. And if you can fulfill that by telling your story, because I believe every story fulfills a need. As a storyteller myself, you just don't even know it until you're called to do it. But if you have that little whisper in your head or that little flutter in your heart and it's telling you share your story, find a way, whether it's your own book or to hop into an opportunity or to come to us,
Yes.
as publishers and say, I have an idea. That's really what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't thank you enough for this gorgeous book. I love how people are all over like, oh my goodness, because people do judge a book by its cover, but
Yeah.
it's not so much like for competitiveness. It's about drawing people in and letting them know what the message is before they open the pages, which is really what matters most. And with that, can you please tell us how can they order this book from you? Because I feel
Yeah.
it's really important in an anthology to empower each individual to become their own self, their own person and sell the books on their own, so they make those connections. So how can they find this book?
Yeah. So, and I have a stack of those. What's cool is when you order them from the individual author, we're going to sign them and you're going to have that keepsake. But you can email me at oneplantone.love@gmail.com and I will send you all the information to get that ordered. And then we'll mail it out to you. My website is just oneplantone.love.com. So, yeah. And, what's cool about once you have this, I just said it today, is like we get to talk about this for a lifetime if we choose, because this might not be new to us, but it's new to that person who's never seen it before. So
Mhm.
never stop talking about it. Never stop telling your story or sharing it. Once you do become an author, it's crazy how many other authors start to like become like, you start seeing all the other people that wrote books, and then you start to hear people that have stories that might be writing a book, or they're like telling you like, I'm writing a book. They may have never told someone that before. And that's what is really cool, because you realize how therapeutic that story writing and telling is, getting it out there. And so yeah, we encourage you to pick this up, shoot me a message, even if you just have a question about the plant.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me and always being in everything with me. That's so important to have that special community. So thank you so much, Amy, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you.